I know, I got all lost and then I forgot what time to eat. Then I didn't go, okay, so aloha everybody. Aloha. Mahalo for coming. You know, just because of the kind of workshop we're doing, I would like, if possible, for us to be, so we can all see each other, no backs to each other, yeah? But kind of half moon so you can see up over here too, yeah? So, and remember we are filming, so anybody who doesn't want their image to be on camera, please let our camera person know. But we can do half moon so that you can at least see each other, and then also can, yeah, don't say too far apart. Just make sure you folks can be close to each other, yeah? Thanks, Pat. Okay, so aloha again. My name is Kale Kanuha, and we'll be spending the next couple of hours together, hopefully talking about, it's funny, when I was looking at the program, I thought, who would come to this? Like, it's the most depressing topic. Like, all the other workshops is like, taking care of yourself. And this one it's kind of deep. So there are going to be some deep moments, but I think there'll be deep, good moments, and hopefully healing and enlightening moments, yeah, for everybody. So, and of course, I use this word Hawaiian love, and we're going to talk about this as we go through it. Just to kind of to have us kind of reflect on how did we get to this point? That's what I always say. How did we get to this point that now we call love and Hawaiian love as a reference to domestic abuse, yeah, and that that somehow to use this term is to make it like not so serious, or like it's kind of a laughing matter that we would call Hawaiian love. When people say Hawaiian love, like almost everybody laughs, and it's not really a laughing matter because we're talking about the lives and the souls and the bodies of us and our children, our daughters, our aunties, our grandmas, our great-grands, our great-great-grands, and so I put that in there because this is part of what we're going to try to talk story with each other about. It's like, what happened? How did we come from where we came as such a loving and caring people to now making jokes about hurting the ones we love? So, and how we're going to spend this time together is my sharing with you a program called Namele Ho'opono that we developed over the last 5 or 6 years here on Oahu, which is a Hawaiian cultural approach to domestic violence using Hawaiian culture as a healing mechanism for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And so we're going to actually do our workshop as we do our Namele Ho'opono program with women, and actually with men too. So that's what we're doing today. Okay, so I like to start with us, starting with Ehomai. And if you don't know Ehomai, just join in. If you don't, well, do whatever you like. But in Namele Ho'opono, we always start with Ehomai as a way to kind of pull ourselves together to get centered on the task at hand. Also, we were very fortunate 10 years ago when we first started to develop this cultural approach to addressing domestic violence in Hawaiian communities, that our kupuna and our kumu on the project was Auntie Ulu Kanakaole Garman from the Kanakaole family. So, Auntie Ulu said, please use my mother's chant, and always remember that you use this and say it with respect and honor, and that it is really intended for all of us, like whatever we got going on and trying to think about what I'm going to have for lunch and what workshop I'm going next or whatever, that for the time we're here, we're really focused on being here together, yeah? So who knows Ehomai? Yeah, some of you? Okay, good. So the way Ehomai works is, and you see the translation, yeah? Grant us the knowledge from above, knowledge sitting in the chairs, grant us these things. So basically we're saying to our gods and to our powers, to if you have a singular God, a Christian God, whatever a God is, you're saying to all of our spirit guides, all of our gods, it's basically saying, I cannot always see things, so please help me to see things. Please help me to know the things I need to know to be open to learning the things I need to learn here with others. So when we say ehomai, you can say it anytime. This is a very beautiful, beautiful chant, and it's a chant that you can feel good when you learn it. And it's kind of easy. So it's just a wonderful chant to do. But mainly when you'll see it is when people gather together, because basically it's a chant to give when you're trying to learn something. You're trying to say, I cannot always see things, so please help me. Help me to have my mind and my heart open so that whatever I have to see, and I need to know that it will come to me. So that's what this chant is. So the chant is, you say it 3 times, and then at the end of the 3rd line, you actually go up. I don't know what it's called, but you can listen, you'll hear. We go up. So you say it 3 times. And at the end of it, you actually drop your voice at the A, and then you cup your hands, and then 2 times, and that's basically wipao. Sometimes you do that, people start clapping, but not supposed to clap. Because you always got to tell people, just because I do that, no, start clapping. And then also, we're not like that, right? Because it's really very quiet. Sometimes people do like this. It's a very soft, like. Now we're closing. It's like an amen at the end, of like that. Okay, so let's all stand up, and then so since we have a number of people who are just starting to learn this chant, we kind of just go over it. First we'll read the lines, and then we'll put the tune to it, and we're not going to spend too much time on this because I'm not really a Hawaiian language teacher, so. So the way I like to teach it is like to just chunk it up a little bit so we don't feel too intimidated, again, because I'm not a Hawaii speaker, but this I think is a beautiful chant, and if I can learn it, anybody can learn it. Yeah. So the first one is we go e homai ka ike mai luna mai e. So let's do the first one. E homai. E homai. Ka ike mai, luna mai e, mai ka ike. And then the next one is o na mea, huna no e au, o na mele e, mai ka ike. And then I think this is the easiest line. 3 times, e homai, e homai, e homai. Okay? Pretty good? Yeah? Shall we try one more time or no? Ready to go? Ready to go. Okay. So remember, we're going to repeat the 3 lines 3 times. And at the end, you'll hear, for those of us who know, you're going to hear, we're going to go up one, I don't know, it's an octave or whatever it's called. I don't know how it goes. Okay? Ho'ma kakao? Ai. E ho mai, kai ke mai, luna mai e. O na mea huna no e au, o na mele e. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai. So good. I will clap for you. So good. So good. So, you know, when we say that, yeah, it feels good, yeah? Just feel like, okay, here we are, we're all here together. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful voice. So the other thing is we start all of our lessons with Olelo Noeau, which is a sacred saying, a proverb. And so, especially for today, I bring this Olelo Noeau, which is from Lulikala, Kamelehiva, one Hanau Kapo. And this is so fitting, yeah, for this gathering, this Ahuahine. And Hanau Kapo means the night gives birth. It is woman who creates the universe. Yeah, so important. So this whole thing about, oh, the night is terrible, the night is spooky, the night is terrible, but really, it's in the night that gives birth to the day. So, you know, gotta have the balance, yeah, night and day, yeah. And so the idea that the night gives birth, the night is a time of the female, and the night is associated with the woman who creates the universe. So powerful, yeah? So in the times when we feel bad and we feel like, oh, well, you know, we're not that valuable, and, you know, our kids don't treat us so good, and our husbands, our boyfriends, our partners, like, don't treat us so good, we always remember, yeah, so valuable. Women are sacred. It is a woman who creates the universe. And I'm also going to be using throughout the presentation some photos that I've taken, and also some woodblock images from Dietrich Verez. Again, one of the things I think for us, yeah, as Hawaiians, and for all of our allies who are not Hawaiian, is that, you know, sometimes people use our stuff and then they don't even give us credit for anything. So I kind of feel like this is very important to me, that when I'm using other people's work or other things that I've learned from people, always give them credit, yeah? And because one thing about us as Hawaiians, we don't believe in ownership, yeah? That's how we got to this problem that we have right now. Because, you know, we're kind of like, you like, okay, go. You like fish, go. You like stay on the land, go. And it's like all of a sudden, we got nothing for ourselves. So to me, part of what we do is we always honor the gifts that we're given. Every single thing we have, we always honor, we respect, we give acknowledgement, yeah, to anything that we're given. So Dietrich Verez, who is a beautiful artist, and has done almost all of his images are of Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian cultural people. And so you'll see a lot of his work throughout, because I feel like his images kind of represent to me and remind me of kind of different days, yeah. And even the style of wood block, carving in wood block, I think very, very important. Come, folks have a seat. Here, come. We just want anybody's back to be if you can. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'd like everybody to see. Come put your shoes in. Okay, so this is, when you think about this, this is our Olelo Noeau, this is our guiding saying for our time together today. Yeah? To remember that we're all very, very valuable, each and every one of us. So this is what we're going to do today, the Papahana, our agenda for our session. First is an overview of the session and some ground rules. And then we're going to do a little practice session that, again, is from our curriculum. I'm going to give you a background of the project, the curriculum that we have, and talk about our core values and principles, again, in the curriculum. And then we're going to do a practice session of one of the sessions we do with the women in our groups. And then I'm going to show you some pictures and some thoughts that some of the women and the men who have been through our Hawaiian curriculum, what they say about how moving this has been for them. And then talk about what about Hawaiian culture, you know, because whenever I talk about this, people who aren't Hawaiian, it's like, oh, that's so good for the Hawaiians, but how we can use that? But the fact is, every time I presented this in groups with now even one Hawaiian, everybody cries.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
You know, because one thing about us that has been just so beautiful, but this is true of so many indigenous peoples, is that the value of who we are is that we have principles and beliefs and as a people that they're all good things. And anybody, any human being will resonate to some of the good things that are part of our culture. We've lost our way sometimes, but if we go back to those basic core values, anybody, Hawaiian, non-Hawaiian, Japanese, Filipino, Iranian, everybody can resonate to them because they speak to the humanity and the beauty of who we are as people, yeah? And also to our connections to all things, to all the elements, to the skies, the waters, the forests, the animals, that our connections to each other we all have, no matter where we come from, yeah? So that's what I'm going to talk about, is the universal principles. And how, no matter where you are, each and every one of you, if you never encounter one Hawaiian in your work, in your community, these values and principles that guide us in this curriculum can help you in every day of your life with all kinds of people, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to give an overview of the session and some of the ground rules because of the content that we're going to be talking about today. So the workshop, as I said, is going to follow the general structure of our Namelehuapono, and I'm going to say how we got that name, Namelehuapono Wahine, our domestic violence curriculum for Hawaiian and Polynesian women survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. The other, I call them ground rules, is that we're all here to learn. So that's what it was a perfect example of everybody chanting Ehomaya. Doesn't matter if you know, you don't know, we're just all here to learn. We don't judge anybody. Like, how come you never know that? Or, you know, we're not, that's not it. We get too much of that in our lives. That's not how that's not Hawaii, the real Hawaiian way. You don't criticize and harm people and are not negative, yeah? So we're all here to learn, especially important here. We acknowledge and respect differences of experiences and power between us. So some of us have different experiences, like some of us may have been survivors. Some of us may be today still trying to figure out about dealing with violence in our families and in our relationship. Some of us, you know, that was so long ago, cannot even remember. Some of us never had this experience and just came here to kind of learn, what is that all about, you know? But so we have many differences, right? So we just respect that we all have something to bring, you know, to this gathering today. We cannot be blamed for the misinformation we have learned, but once we learn new information, we're responsible for not promoting misinformation. So there might be, I would think, some of you here would say, like, how come she stayed with the guy? He's such a jerk. If I was with him, I would leave him like that. Right? You might be thinking that, or might be feeling that, right? And I hope when you get to the end of this time, or that from whatever we have today, that you'll leave thinking, you know, I can see why this is so hard and why this happens, you know? And so once you know that, can I go around and tell everybody, like, oh, I don't know why she's there, she's so stupid, she's a doorman, you know, she's like, oh, you don't know any better, you know, what's her problem? You're going to learn, like, you know, why sometimes it's so hard to get out of relationships, right? So once you have that insight, cannot keep saying the same thing over, yeah? That's the one thing I always say. Once you have a window on some way of thinking, you see that there's not only one path, there's like two paths. You cannot say only one path, because no more only one path anymore. Your heart and your mind open up and say, I might not agree with going that path, but now I understand there's more than one, yeah? So I always say, once you know something different, you cannot act like you didn't know that before, because now your heart and your mind has opened. And once open, you cannot close them up again. You cannot say, oh, that didn't really happen. It happened, right? So we speak only for ourselves and not for other groups of people. So I'm going to say some things today, and some of you will too. And you what I ask all of us to be very careful about is to not say, oh, you know how Hawaiians are, huh? It's like, no. We don't all know how Hawaiians are, because we don't know every single Hawaiian. So you cannot say, oh, you know, all Hawaiians are like that. Well, not really, right? Or like, we just have to be very careful to not speak for everybody. You just speak for yourself, yeah, today. We assume that there are survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, maybe child sexual assault, elder abuse, same-sex violence, who are here in this room. There may also be some of us in the room who may have hurt other people, hurt maybe your children, hurt your partner, maybe hurt your mother, but done some kind of family violence in your life. So I always say, because of the stats, right? The stats are 1 in 4 women and girls in their lifetime will have had some kind of experience of sexual abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual assault, something like that. So just count how many people in this room, yeah? Every 4th person in this room has had some kind of experience. And that's only the ones we know about. So we know it's probably more than 1 in 4, yeah, if you count everything. And so be very careful and be very sensitive as you speak, because you might be speaking to, you know, your sister or your mother, your cousin, your teacher, somebody in this room, and you're talking about them, and they're right here, you know. So, you know, sometimes when I give this kind of workshop, people go, Oh, but you know how those guys are, dude. That guy's like, and somebody's sitting right there. And you're talking about their lives. So you have to be very careful, y'all. That doesn't mean we're not going to censor each other and say, hey, stop talking. But we're going to say, you know what, let's just, think a little bit and think somebody might be talking about you next. So be very thoughtful and careful, y'all, because that's part of what we're here to learn is like every day we go through life and people saying bad things about Hawaiians and bad things about Hawaiian women, and you know how they are, they mouth off too much, and they deserve what they get, if they just shut up, they would, we wouldn't have to do this to them. I'm going to tell you, when we get to the background, I've done a Hawaiian group with, for almost 2 years with men who are court ordered, so I've heard every story about why they do what they do. And then for over 35 years, I've been working with survivors. So I know both sides, and I know when people say, oh, all those guys, they're all crazy. You know what? They aren't.
Yeah.
I wish they were, but some of you, they really aren't crazy. They are like our best uncles, our best brothers, our favorite boyfriend or girlfriend. They're not crazy. But we all think they're crazy. I've worked with hundreds of guys, and you know what? I would say like 2 or 3 of them were crazy. Yeah? But most of them, they just haven't gotten it. We've lost our way with them. Yeah. So we try to be respectful. We shall critically think and self-reflect before speaking or sharing. That's related to the one above. Confidentiality of people and experiences are required. I think I can see that there are social service people in the room, and maybe people who've worked in settings. Yeah. That you know, right? That the saying, what's said here stays here. Yeah, so we're creating a safe space. So what that means is a couple things. Number one, whatever you say in this room, let's not like as soon as you go outside say, hey, you know what? You see that girl over there? Terrible, Her father went rape her. She said in the group. That's not okay. Yeah. Right? So no telling stories on anybody's story here. You can say, I was in this workshop. Oh, the things I learned, people talked about this and this and this. But you don't go pointing people out and saying, oh, she said that, she did that. She's still in one relationship with that guy, Okay? Confidentiality, very important. Because if you feel like you cannot speak in here, we're in big trouble. Yeah. Right? Because we cannot speak out in the world. At least we got to be able to talk about this thing, this problem, in this room for this time we have together. Yeah? So we're going to start with, every group in our Hawaiian cultural DV groups with a kulukumohana, which is like pulling together, calling together, bringing together, learning from and about each other. And when we do our groups, we usually have every person go around and do this. We will be here until like after lunch, so we're not going to do this today. I will just have you do it with your neighbor. So just turn to the person next to you. So this is what we do. And why do we do this? Culturally, the same way we open with e homai, and then we talk about it in a little noea, which is going to guide our time together. Then we also always start with who you, right? That's the Hawaiian thing, like where you grad, what year you grad, right? Because as island people and as indigenous people, our relationships to and with other people and places so important, So for those of you I know who've been on the mainland or whatever, the first thing, no matter where you are, we always say, what school you went, or what high school you grad, and then what year, right? Because what do we know when somebody says what high school they grad? Well, you know my cousin. Yeah? What do we know when people tell us that?
Age.
Yeah? So where they live, what their age, right? Okay, so if I say I grad Hilo High, class of 69, it's like, oh, she is old. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of like, you know where I went to school at least, so I must have been kind of living in Hilo. The second thing is you kind of have an idea of my age. So it's so much about place and people, and then I say my name, it's like, oh, I know Akanuha, or I know Kalima, right? I know Nakamoro. So this thing about names and places is so important to us, right? So your name, and if you know anything about your name, what does it mean? How did you get it? And I'm always surprised when I do this. Plenty of us, we don't even know how come we got our name. And if you don't know, before the people who are close to you pass, try to find out, because once they're gone, you cannot, you're going to lose that forever. And your name is so important about what your identity is, yeah? So your name, and either the origin or the meaning, where were you born and raised? So you may have been born at some place and raised someplace else, yeah? Or you may have been raised many different places. Hopefully you're only born one place. Where are your ancestors from? You know, and name wherever they were from. You know, California, Germany, you know, Portugal, Kohala, me, Waikauka, yeah? Names of family, biological, or we say by association, because we also know Ohana style, yeah? Don't have to be only koko, don't even have to be blood. Plenty of us have what we call family. No more blood, but there's blood in our hearts, yeah? And what are we doing? Names of family, now please don't go on with your whole genealogy with this one, but this is what we say. You know, to me, when we do this kind, I always say, at the end of our time, I can picture like a few hundred people in this room, because they're going to all come and be here with us, yeah? So you name and you call a few people that you kind of think like, you know what, I'd like them to be here. You know, sometimes we say, oh, you know, I wish my mother could have been in a workshop like this, because nobody believed her, nobody helped her. But you know, you could call your mom today, maybe, yeah? Or your grandma, or your auntie. Your sister who lives in California is having a hard time calling you today too, yeah? So anybody you'd like to invite here. And then we do pehea oi. So when we do pehea oi in our groups, because you know what? You know us, yeah, when we get together, you know, like vala'au the whole time, huh? Same thing, we'll be here till like tomorrow morning. So what we do is we usually do some kind of symbol. So we say, what kind of cloud, what kind of water, what kind of plant, what kind of wind, you know, what kind of sea creatures. So we always kind of have something like that, so that you start thinking in metaphors, right? So instead of saying, oh, how are you doing today? Fine. What the heck does that mean, right? But what do we know about people who are close to the elements is that we understand who we are by things and beings and senses around us, yeah? But we've lost track of that a little bit. So when we say pehea oi, today's pehea oi is going to be what type of plant describes how you're feeling right now. Okay? People understand. Yeah. So you're going to just talk to the person next to you. I'll leave them up. Your name, origin and meaning, where you were born and raised, where are your ancestors from, and then just call some people to be here with you today. And then your pehea oi, what type of plant are you feeling like today? Yeah? And then the last thing I'll say before I let you folks do this, try to go kind of sort of fast, like maybe 5 minutes each, or less, like 2 or 3 minutes each. You know, this one here, what's going to happen is, after you say something, right, and then the other person starts, so one person go, then the other person go, right? So you do all your whole kulukumahana, and then the other person go, all right? But what's going to happen is when another person starts talking, they're going to say, oh, I'd like to invite my Auntie Joni and my Uncle Harry, and then you're going to think, oh, I should have said Uncle Harry, right? You're going to think of somebody. But this is what we know. Whoever came to you when you had your turn was who was supposed to be here. And you're going to say, oh, I should have said my mother. But you know what? Your mother's probably already here. That's why you didn't have to call her name. So don't be like second guessing yourself. Today's session we're going to talk about is going to be about the na'au. Trusting your na'au. Who's supposed to be here will be here, whether or not you called their name. Right? So don't be like, oh, I should have done that, or oh, that's a good person you called. I should have called that person. It doesn't work like that, you know? Whatever's supposed to come from your heart is going to come. Okay? Everybody ready?
Ready.
Okay. But find somebody or whatever and we'll start.
Okay, my name is Sarai. My name is Dad. On his chat. S-H-E-R-R-A-N. And then I was born at the Kaiser Hospital in Alabama, but raised in Canada. Yeah? And my sisters are from Portugal and Libya. My family more care, and I like to put my sister in and the plant, I think I would like to do Picasso. I mean, like, I don't make a Picasso right now. So, but what did you last say? Oh yeah, Kiko. Like, I know you as well. Yeah? Oh go back to college.
Okay, the other person hasn't gone. The other person should go now, yeah?
Managing a house in college, you're in the RAM program. I'm in the RAM program.
That's based on what there's a lot of people that like to work
They also have a lot of open yeah?
but this is I wanted to get you right now I'm not getting right now. There's some positions required. That's why I'm in the process of studying for myself.
Right on.
And because that and
you think it's hard?
it's a lot of school to yeah, because it encompasses all the theory. So it has a lot of complete.
Can you remember?
That's what I want to keep you know while it's still
yeah.
Because it just that's all I get on my life now.
Okay.
Right on.
Everybody, almost go. Okay. Paul, kind of almost. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So how was that? Good. Nice, yeah? Yeah. So, you know, the thing again to just imagine, right, that all those people you called, they're here now with us. And then somebody didn't even call, they're here too, right? So this idea that, and this is a very important concept when especially when we're working, well actually for both sides, yeah? So when we work with the women, we say to them, you know, in the times when you have felt so alone, like nobody was with you, you are never alone. This is what's so true about us as Hawaiian people. In those moments you feel like, you know, many women particularly who have been in violent relationships or have been violated by their family members, maybe from small kid time, you know, they say, God, why did you allow this to happen? Or they'll say, you know, nobody was there for me, but somebody was there. What happened, we don't always know, but one thing to always remember is that somebody's always watching out for you. And in a way, what we've lost track of is when we say, nobody's watching for me, we forget that somebody is watching for you. And it's in those moments when we lose that connection to our ancestors, to our aumakua, that we feel the most alone, but we're never alone. Yeah? The other thing is, when we say to the men, you're never alone, and all those people you called are there with you too, now you can imagine, I say to them, all those people were watching you when you laid a hand on your partner, when you struck your child, when you forced your girlfriend to have sex. All your ancestors were watching. What do you think they thought? You know what? All the men put their head down. Now you can imagine, nobody ever said that to them before, right? The judge said, oh, throw him in jail, right? The police said, okay, guy, come, put on the cuffs. Nobody said, you know what? Your ancestors saw what you did, you know. And what do you think they think? And you know what all the guys say? They shame. They think it wasn't right. They know, right? So it's like, this is not mentally ill people. They know what they did is wrong. And then we can go from there, right? But when you don't even give them a chance to say, somebody saw what you did, and were they proud of you? No. Did they think, oh, good guy, that's a good thing you did? No. So now we got to find out then, why did you do that? So this idea of calling and connecting to our past and to our present and to our future is again this other thing about us as people, and I guess it's true of all people, is that we've lost that way of always connecting our past and our present and our future, right? So we should, this is another little lesson to kind of keep with you always, is that number one, your past is with you always. Yeah. Not only the junk stuff, but the beautiful things that you don't even know, right? So the relatives that you never knew that were probably very positive forces and guides in not even in your life, but maybe your great-great-great-great-great's lives, you know? They're still with you. All that's around you now is very with you too, but you got to kind of pay attention. And our hustle bustle world, we don't pay attention to things, but the ho'elona, the signs are around us every day, but we just got to kind of pay attention. We got to slow down a little bit, turn off the iPad, turn off the iPod, turn off television, turn down the radio when you're cruising, and just like look around and feel around, and you can see the things that you have to see. And the third thing is everything you do today has an impact in the future. So every moment we live is about our past, our present, and our future happening exactly at the same time, right? So when we kind of think about that, that's a big kuleana, yeah? That all of our ancestors are with us, and all of our spirits are with us from the past, the ones we don't even know. And then in the present, everything around us. Now, we are all ohana to each other. You folks spoke a breath to each other about your histories. Now, us all ohana to each other. Now, we are all going to watch over each other. Even if we never see each other again, we will, yeah? And everything we do today, every step we take, every thought we have in our mind, every word that we say, has an impact on the future, yeah? So what an important kuleana to always remember, yeah? And kuleana, ana means to go on forever. So you may say, oh, that's not my kuleana. Oh, really? Wrong. Kuleana, ana is to go on forever. So once you have kuleana, you always have it. Not like, oh, the party over, I clean up. No, you clean up every day. Every day you clean up, right? Because that's our kuleana. Every day you aloha people, because that's our kuleana, right? So this idea of past, present, and future, this is another core thing in our relationship, in our curriculum, is that we say, you live every moment of your life with that kuleana, the past, the present, and the future, right? And you know, when we think about that, to me, it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like, how terrific. How terrific to have all of that. How strong and how important I am that I have all that. It's not like, oh man, so much stuff I got to worry about. Worry? You shouldn't have to worry if you just live a good pono life, yeah? Then everything will be all in one. So it shouldn't be a burden. It should be something that you feel so excited and proud to carry that as a people, yeah? So that's why we do kukulukamahana, pull our resources together, everybody for each other, everybody taking care, yeah? So I'm going to tell you now a little bit about the background of our project that started actually in about 12 years ago, 2000. So we got some funding from the federal government And we were funding for like 5 or 6 years to start a Hawaiian cultural domestic violence program. And because I'm from Hilo, even though I live in Honolulu now, I said, you know what, everything always goes to Oahu, yeah? So I said, we're going to take them Big Island. And nobody does anything at Hilo, so I said, let's take them to Hilo. So we worked with a program in Hilo, a domestic violence program in Hilo. The name of our program is called Kealolokahi, which is the pathway to harmony, the pathway to balance, yeah? The name was given to the project by Auntie Malia Craver. I think those of you who know Auntie Malia, who passed a while back, she's a very important person. And then, so she gave us the name, and then we went over to Hilo, and then for the next 5, 6 years, we developed from scratch Kealolokahi, working daily with Auntie Ulu Kanakaoli Garmin. And does anybody know Auntie Ulu? Yeah? So it's kind of like, oh man. It was like trial by fire, I tell you. It's kind of like, I always tell people, blood, sweat, and tears, that was it. Mainly the tears part. So it's just like,
It's in the blood.
Yeah, it is. But it was just powerful. The most wonderful experience ever. But I cried almost every day. Everybody in the project cried. Because it was it was such an honor, because this is something the Auntie Ulu had never done before, the family had never done before, but actually it had never been done anywhere in Hawaii before. This melding of Hawaiian culture with trying to address domestic violence, I mean, very, very difficult, yeah? So important to us to have had Auntie Malia's blessing and Auntie Malia's support, and then Auntie Ulu. Basically, almost everything we developed was really because of the blessing and the daily working. I mean, it must not have been easy for her either. They're like, what? So she just so mentored and trained and taught and cajoled and poked and pushed and prodded and loved us all up and helped us to create a wonderful program. So Kealolokahi was a curriculum that was a Hawaiian curriculum for the men who were court-ordered for domestic violence offense by the courts in Hilo to Kealolokahi. They were all Hawaiian. And then we also had a separate Kealolokahi Wahine for women. So the men were court-ordered. The women just volunteered. Like women come to support group. They just came to support group. And he said, you want to go Hawaiian group? And then so they could volunteer to come into the Hawaiian group. So this is another presentation, but it was a research study. So we did all these tests and everything like that, and to develop Kealolokahi. So that went on for about 6 years, and then we had some additional year funding from OHA, and then actually they stopped doing it for all kinds of complicated reasons. So at the same time, I always felt like the idea was to bring this approach around to the different islands, and so the first thing to remember is that it was a culturally specific curriculum for abusers and for survivors. So again, for some of you who know about these kind of interventions with either victims or offenders or survivors and perpetrators, usually it's kind of like there's two separate things. What they do with the guys is really different than what they do with the Wahines, right? And then everybody says, like, can't we ever get them together? We didn't get it together with this, but it's also like the women are learning one thing, the men are learning one thing. It's like, does anybody like teaching them the same things? We don't know. This is a very unusual curriculum in that we presented the exact same content to the women as to the men. Now they're not together, and they're not even the same relationship, right? Could be like 10 women from a whole different relationship, the 10 men from, they don't even know the women, right? So they're completely separate, but we use the exact same curriculum. And I'll tell you, again, for some of you I know who know this field of domestic violence, I don't think there's any place in the country that uses the same curriculum for the women as for the men. But it made sense for us, right? Because we are a community of people. And so we kind of had to figure out what to do, because we're trying to figure out culturally how we help our people, yeah? The other thing is that as we started this, I started asking around when we first were looking at this money, and I said, there must be somebody who's doing this using Hawaiian culture. And people said, yeah, somebody over here, some over there. But I call it, Hawaiianizing the Western way. So like, we'd have like a curriculum, for working with like the men, but they use like Hawaiian words in them or stuff like that. It was just, you know, like a totally Western way with Hawaiian words on top. And like we were, and like anybody was surprised it didn't really work that well. And it was like, why, right? So what we said, we're going to do something really different. We're going to start from scratch. Just start from scratch. We don't even know what we're doing, but we're going to, you know, try to figure out how we can do a blend. How we're going to do a blend where we can, you know, really make something really different, you know? So I'll tell you one story that I think is that this was my most favorite beginning. And I still remember we were driving with Auntie Ulu, and I was just kind of getting to know her. I'd never really met her before. We were driving from Hilo to Kona. And some of you know, the power and control wheel. Have you folks seen that thing, right? So we have the power and control wheel that shows all the negative and bad and abusive things that abusers do in their relationships, yeah, to their partners. And then we have the opposite. Do people remember what the opposite of power and control is? Equality. Equality, exactly. Equality wheel, right? So I said, well, Auntie, riding in the car. I said, you know, Auntie, like we're kind of trying to do this, like the, you know, Hawaiian version of the equality and power and control. So I said, now, what is there a Hawaiian a word or concept for equality? Dead silence in the front seat. She's in front of me. I'm in the back, yeah. Nothing. I was like, maybe she didn't hear me. And I said, is there a word for equality in the Hawaiian language? She said, no. We don't have a word for equality. She said, because there is not equality in Hawaiian culture. There's balance. Everybody don't do the same thing. Equality means same. There is no such thing as same. Everybody got their roles and functions. Roles and functions. The difference is, with Western ways, what we said is, you know, women have to take care of their bodies, give birth to kids, babies, take care of the kids, stay around the house because they have to do plenty of things, and then they sometimes have to work outside the house too, right? Guys, big bodies, big brawn, they have to do certain things that women cannot do because they have body strength, right? So she said, equality means same. Lokahi means balance. You have a part, I have a part. It doesn't mean you cannot do some of the other things, you know. The guys can wash dishes. The guys can do the laundry. The guys can take care of the babies. The women can mow the lawn. They can repair the car. Everybody can work. But you cannot have everybody doing the same thing because you need some people who's better at certain things doing that thing, huh? Like, you don't want me to be repairing the car. I'm just not that good at it, right? But I'm quite good at cooking. But I'm also very good at computer repair. But, you know, so it's kind of like, it's balance, yeah? So it's like, oh, so not equality, balance. And you can imagine, that whole concept like threw me off for like weeks. I was like, equality, no such thing. It's balance, right? So she said, what do you think the word lokahi? Why do you folks call this thing keala lokahi if you're talking about equality? We're talking about lokahi, balance, right? So that's an example of kind of like not Hawaiianizing Western concepts, but making Hawaiian concepts the foundation. Our way of thinking and being and knowing ourselves, that's what we go to. Not adding on Hawaiian words to something that somebody else made up in Minnesota. Yeah? So first of all, very culturally specific, same thing, not equal, but same thing, same kind of curriculum. And the other thing is there are very few, I would say right now, because I kind of track this, as far as I know, what we're doing here on Oahu, in the Mele Ho'opono, is the only culturally based domestic violence, sexual assault intervention in the country, in the United States right now. And actually it's the only one of its kind, I think, in Hawaii also. Yeah? So it's very unusual. So what we did is we expanded to the island of Oahu from Moku Okeawe in 2008. And our kumu and kupuna for the project and the name gifted to the project was from Kahu, David Kaupu. Some people know Kahu, yeah, who was the chaplain for many years at Kamehameha schools at the Kapalama campus. And it's just a very wonderful person. If you ever have a chance to be around him, just a very gifted person. So important, yeah, that we start with Kupuna, who was Wahine, and a very noted Hawaiian family. And then we call Oahu, and now we have a Kane, Lokahi, right? So everybody's like, wow, you have a guy doing that thing? I said, why not? How blessed could we be to have two such renowned kupuna, one Kane, one Wahine, helping us to develop a Hawaiian way of being, yeah? So here's this name that was so beautiful. You know how the whole naming thing, just love it, yeah? Just love it. It's like, okay, Kahu, we've been working for like about a year, and we just call it the Hawaiian curriculum. I said, have you any thoughts? He said, I'll get back to you. Hold on, well, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that. And then like about 2 months later, he said, okay, I got the name. The Mele Ho'opono. We said, oh, that's a kind of a complicated name, you know. So this is the quotes from Kahu about what this name and how this name came to him. Such a beautiful, powerful name. So Nameli Ho'opono, working in a culturally Pono manner to plant the seeds that will guide our men to do what is right culturally and spiritually while supporting the spiritual healing of our women. He said that's the meaning of Nameli Ho'opono to him. So here's how it goes. Mele, so mele is for the color yellow, and the island of Oahu. Got the mele thing in there, right? Also mele, and you will see it on the next slide, mele as your song, your story, right? And then also, I'm not, any navigators here? So, you know, mele, you know the Orion, yeah? That's like the only constellation I know. But, you know, Orion is the three equidistant stars. It's very, very important, I didn't know this, but very important astrological, no, I mean astronomical. Yeah? Yeah, Orion's belt, right? So Orion is a very important for navigation, navigational constellation, yeah? And it's one of the only constellations that can be seen always in the night sky. So that's kind of deep too, yeah? But the three stars in the belt, Orion's belt, two of them, the twin stars, are called Mele Mele and Pola Pola. And they are considered the male and female stars. Balance, right? The male and female, Mele Mele and Pola Pola. So he said, we got to have that Mele Mele, which is, the Mele Mele is the male, and Pola Pola is the female star. So he said, na Mele Ho'opono, Mele, the yellow, yellow, Oahu, Ilima, and then Mele Mele and Pola Pola, the male and the female, the balance, yeah? And it's such an important constellation. So here's what he says. So na, of course, is the many, right? Na Mele. So the idea of mele, as we just said, for Oahu, is also your story. Na mele, your many stories. And the hua, which is the bud opening up, the coming to fruition, the opening, the creating, yeah? And pono, to be right in balance, to be right in all ways. So again, another interpretation, the many works that you do to bring about a sense of accomplishment that is right, that is in balance. So this idea of fruition, this hua, this bud opening up. So you're still kind of like, you're ready to open, but Nameli Ho'opono is to open you up, to do what is right. So for the men, to do what is right for yourself and your family, and for the women, to have healing and serve, and to come forward, to be held in the esteem and with the sacred stature that you should have as a female in Hawaiian culture. So such a beautiful name, yeah, from Kahu. So that's what we're doing here on Oahu now, Nameli Ho'opono. So here are the guiding principles of Nameli Ho'opono. That this was a partnership with PACT, Family Peace Center, and now we're about to continue it at the Joyful Heart Foundation here on Oahu. So elevate Hawaiians and indigenous approaches as valuable. So instead of like, again, this idea that Hawaiians are kind of like, oh, it's nice, it's cute, it's good for HVB and all of that. But really it's like our way of being in the world is valuable. It's not valuable in comparison to the Western way, but just for who we are. We know a few things, and we can value ourselves and our ways and our approaches, right? That we identify individual, community, and systemic needs. One of the problems that I believe from doing this work for a long time with domestic and sexual violence work is we always focus on the individual. Yeah? Fix that guy, heal that woman, get them to be better parents. It's like, really? But we are a community. So we fix the guys, or we fix the women, and we send them out, and then guess what? Problems again. No? So this idea that we only don't look at the individual, but we see the individual in their family, in their community, and that we're always looking at what is around those individuals that can help them to be pono in their lives. Yeah? We address the experiences of all people in communities affected by violence. So this approach, again, comes from what is called restorative justice, this principle, which is, how we say it's a private matter? Hawaiian love, that's a private matter. It's just between the husband and wife, like, no get involved, right? But the fact is, number one, we know it's not a private matter. Why? Because anytime you have to hear somebody fighting next door, now you're affected. When your best friend has to go live at the shelter because the husband beat her up, that now has affected your community and your family and your neighbors. And then when she cannot come work because get black eyes, it affects everybody at work. And when the child has to go move to the shelter and they cannot go to their own school, that affects that child and their relationships in their school, right? So why do we think this is a private matter? The cop who has to go to the house, the judge who has to act on the case, the probation officer who has to track the guy, all these people are affected because of the private matter? No. Can't think about it that way anymore. This problem is a problem for all of us as a community. And we've kind of acted, we go about, the 911 person that you call on the telephone. They got to hear that story and the baby crying in the back, because something bad is happening or whatever. We're all affected by this. This is not a private problem. So we got to think about everybody who's affected. The aunties, the grandmas, the best friends, the coach, the pastor, everybody who knows that couple, they're all affected too, right? So we got to think that everybody around a family is being affected by this. Not only them problem, it's everybody's problem, yeah? Cultural ways of thinking and acting will more than stop the violence, but allows individuals, families, and communities to thrive and live free. So one of the things that I do when I was doing the group with the guys, and I've stopped now, but I would say every time a new guy comes in from the court, they're like, oh, I don't like to be here. I said, why did you come? I don't know. The judge told me I gotta come. But really? So you came here on a Thursday night, pay money, and you don't know why you came. Yeah, the judge just told me I had to come. Right? I said, okay, well, we'll see about that. So what I say is, I'm so glad you came to group. And what I hope, at the end of 7 months, what I hope is that you never, never lay a hand on your partner again except in love. I hope that you never say words that are harmful and hurtful to your partner. That you never treat your partner with disrespect. That you never do anything that shows your child that this is all right way to treat their mother. I hope that's true. But you know what's more important? Not the don'ts, but the do's. And I say, if that happens, I'll be very happy. But I don't want that to be the only thing. When you leave this group, I want you to go out in the community and be a good Hawaiian man. That's way more important to me. Because if you only do better in your family, that's not enough. Once you go out in the world, get a job, stop using drugs, take care of your neighbors, pick up the opala on the beach, don't drive too fast, and give the finger when you get road rage. Right? So I said, to me, plant a tree, go help one kupuna going down the street, too many bags, do good work. Be a good man in our society. So this don't is not the most important thing. It's the do. Do good. Do nice. Take care of others. So I said, be a good man, because you know what? We need good Hawaiian men. And we need you to be that good man for your ancestors, for all your brothers around you, and for all the sons to come after you. They got to say, hey, you know what? I had this uncle. And you know what? Last monkey time, he went beat up my auntie, But then, you know what? He changed. And he's a good guy, now. That's what we want everybody to say about you. Right? Not just kind of like, well, my family banned him, and I don't know what happened to him. He went mainland or something. I don't even know what happened to him. We don't want that. And you don't want that either, right? So this idea of not don't do things, but do things. Be a good man. That's our approach, yeah? Not punishment. but a belief that you can be better. And we do the same thing with the women. We say, you know what, it's not about don't ever get into a bad relationship again. It's like, oh, if that were only true, yeah, for us. It's like, no. The whole point is that you are sacred. You are powerful. You gave birth to, you created the world. You're an important person. You come from an important line. You're an important part of our lokahi, yeah? Colonization and racism must be acknowledged. This is one of those things people say, oh, you talk about the big C? We're like, of course. How do you think we got into this problem? So I say, you know what? Talk about racism. Talk about colonization. Talk about how it is that we've lost our land, lost our language, lost every kind of thing. And we're surprised that this now we're laughing about Hawaiian love. I don't think so. We wouldn't have been talking Hawaiian love, you know, when we were the only peoples on these in these lands. I don't think it was a joke, honestly. So how come we're laughing about it now, right? So it means what we believe is stopping violence against women means living Hawaiian life. Does it mean speaking Hawaiian at home every day? Not really. It's being Hawaiian in your heart, loving people, caring for people, being good. Being good. That's really what it means, yeah? And trauma is a central theme. So when we name trauma, we say the trauma of intimate violence, sexual assault, of domestic violence. But you know what? Colonization has been very traumatizing, right? We know that, right? We lost our culture, we lost traditions, access, we've lost our land, we've lost many, many, many thousands of our people from colonization. So to me, if you don't talk about that, we're missing the most important point, right? You've got to talk about colonization. And when people say, yeah, but you can't blame it all on colonization. I said, it's not about blame. And what I say to the guys is, don't you ever say that you beat your wife because of colonization. Because you know what? There's hundreds of Hawaiian men, they don't beat their wives. And you know what? They were in the same class as you. They lived down the same street as you. Their mothers and fathers were drunk just like your parents. You know what? They never have laid a hand on any woman. So it's not about colonization. So what I say is, colonization explains domestic violence. It's not excuse for domestic violence. See that difference? It explains, it doesn't excuse it, right? Because everyone has choices at some point down the road. And you have these two, you used to think, that's all I can do. You know, I always get, you know, somebody said, this one guy in a batterers group in Minnesota, he said, I know what my problem is, my picker. Your picker? Yeah, broken, I got a broken picker. What is that? I always pick the wrong women. Yeah, well, I don't think that's it. So we say, no, it's not that you picked the wrong woman. It's that you think that you have only one path of your relationships with women, but there's many paths, and you don't have to stay on that one path, right? So this idea of colonization is just because we lost our land, we lost everything, I can't go fishing. It's like, no. You made a choice to go down that path, and hundreds of Hawaiian men don't. So you choose the other path, a good path, and that's possible for you. Yeah. Developing evidence that we can repeat, we can kind of duplicate this approach, and combining our Hawaiian traditions with the Western best practices. Yeah? So that's what we're hoping to do with this project. Okay, so here are the So here are the main ways that we do in the Mele Ho'opono. The first one is it's based in the history, the peoples, the gods, the sacred sites and setting. So a lot of people, you know, who on Oahu, when we first started Kealokahi, they said, well, can we do it on Maui? I was like, no. And even when we were going to bring Kealokahi, parts of it to over here, we had to start all over again in a way. Because why? Because you cannot use cultural ways from one place. You cannot even do what we're doing in the Mele Ho'opono. I don't think it actually would work that well on the North Shore of Oahu, right? So this is, again, the difference. So, you know, all of us, you know, wherever we work, if you work in the social services, in academia, or wherever you work, right? We bring things from the mainland, and we're kind of surprised it doesn't kind of work. Because as people who are grounded in place and space, and our ancestors, you cannot like move things around like that. Yeah? You can't just, you know, substitute volcano with kukane loko. I mean, you can't do that, right? Yeah. You cannot substitute the lo'i down in Waipio Valley with the lo'i up the North Shore of, you know, in Kahalu. Like, no, lo'i is not lo'i, right? But this idea, like you can just take something and do the same thing someplace else, that's so acultural. So this idea that we are always grounded in space, place, history, stories, very important, yeah, for the lesson. But say, what do you think this means? And have people figure it out for themselves. And you know what? We're smart. We can figure things out, you know. So this idea of metaphor is very important. This idea of hope giving and a focus on positive change. You know, one of the things that a lot of times when we work with the guys, they say, they come in like, oh, you know, just hard and mad and defensive, until they realize, like, we're not going to scold them. We're not mad at them. We're not going to say, oh, you're the worst, you know, scum of the earth. They're like so surprised. They say, wow, you're so nice to us. And I say, well, why not? You know, we're teaching you that we can be nice to you, and you can be nice to your girlfriend, and nice to your kids. We can show you. There's no reason you have to act like that, right? So this idea of giving hope, focusing on not the don't, but the do, focus on the potential, focus on the goodness in you, that's what we focus on. And we do that with the women by saying, you are sacred, you are powerful, you create the universe. We need you for our people, our places, our fish, our forests to go on. It's us, you folks, it's us that makes that happen, yeah? And then the other thing is when people say, how can you use the same curriculum with the guys and with the women? With the men, we focus on accountability, and with the women, we focus on empowerment and healing, right? So when I say your ancestors are watching over you, we say to the guy, they're watching over you. What do they think? I'm bad? Good. And we say to the women, your ancestors are watching over you. What does that mean? I was never alone. See, like the same thing can go different ways, but it's still very cultural, no? Any questions so far? Does this kind of make sense to people? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
A lot of men say, well, women aren't accountable for their behaviors, and they blame them for whatever anger they have and stuff. So how would you deal with that?
Well, you know what we do, and again, this is a very standard thing, I think, which is, I say, and I say this very sincerely, I don't say this like, don't talk about it, but what I say is, you know what, if your partner were here, I would say the same thing to her. But she's not here, you're here. And so as long as you're here, let's do the best we can to help you. If she were here, I would say the same thing to her. That we want you to be good. We want you to be happy. We want you to be the things that you want to be in your life, right? But as soon as we kind of say, like in the Western way, they say, stop talking about her. She's not here. You're the one at fault. We don't do that. I say, I would talk to her, but she's not here. So let's just, you know what? You're so lucky because you have me. And I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to help you to be the man that you want to be. And we're not, and I even say, you know, we're not really worried about her right now. I only care about you. It's like, oh, okay. You know, it's really like, I only care about you right now. And I want you to only care about yourself.
It's empowering them.
Yeah, right? And the same way when the women come, I say the same thing to them. They say, well, but you know, my husband, he really needs help, and he's using drugs and whatever. I said, you know what? If he were here, I would say that to him, but you're here. And today, I only care about you. Not that I don't care about him, but you're here today, and I'm going to take care of you, wrap you all up, and have you know how valuable you are. You see, the same thing you can say, but the message to what they're taking is kind of different, yeah? Right? Okay, so here's our group structure, and this time we're going to do this thing. This is how every single lesson, every week, 2 hours every week. For the women, it's 15 to 18 weeks, yeah? And this is a structure. We first start with the proverb, like we did before, Ololo no Eo. Then we do Kukulu Kumahana. And then we usually have maybe a brief review of the lesson the week before, depends on what it was. And then we do Ha'avina, which is a new lesson. We have a new lesson every week or every couple weeks. And then we have what is called Ho'omalu. And that's when we have people either write, draw, we have journals, and just some way to kind of self-reflect. We don't do that with the guys, but with the women we do, because we really feel like one thing that we don't have as women is we don't have those quiet moments. So much stuff here we have to do. So we try to have women take this quiet moment to just take some time for yourself and to think about and to feel about and to reflect on. And then we have a closing. Okay? So again, it's about 16 sessions for the women, and then they complete a kihei. I'm going to show you some pictures at the end. And then for the men, they have 30 sessions. They have to acknowledge that they were abusive to their partners. they have to complete a non-melee log, which is they have to do one analysis. They actually do about 6 or 7 before they're done. They have to analyze every single thing they did in an abusive act that they did with their partners. A lot of them is for what the thing that brought them in led to the group. And then they complete a Papahana Ho'olala, which is a non-violence plan. That's our name for a non-violence plan. It's very complete, and it's very different for some of you who have seen how the Western model is. Like ours, we say, name a guy, a man, that you look up to. And then they have to give the name, and you know what? None of them say they don't know somebody. And, right? Because they do. Right? Say, name a man that you look up to. And then we say, give all the traits that man has. And then that's the person you're going to try to live like from now on, right? So we have a lot of different things that are very cultural, right? And then they have to make a statement where they say in front of the group what it means for them to be Hawaiian and what it means for them to take responsibility for having hurt their families and what they're going to do, right? Now again, this is not any foolproof thing. I mean, it sounds kind of nice, but you know, it's hard to change this behavior. But this is something, again, that we're trying to kind of deeply root them in. It's not just about you. It's that you connect yourself to your community, you know? And then they complete a kihe too. Okay? So I'm going to run through this really, really fast. So here's these are values. And I would say the top 2 are Aloha Aina and Lokahi. And Aloha Aina is actually something that we actually got from Kahu. And this is one of those phrases, words, I would say, Aloha Aina phrases, that now it's very popular because of sustainability and green and responsible, right? So when we say Aloha Aina, what is it?
Love the land.
Love the land. Loving the land, right? Take care of the land. But one of the things that, Kahu was so great with us, like this whole thing about kuleana. Ana is ongoing or long time. This idea, wow, kuleana means that ana, go on forever, right? So he also said Aloha Aina. It's that people say it's loving the land, caring for the land, yeah? But really, what is really underneath Aloha Aina is not just caring for the land, but aloha, love, yeah? Ai, yeah? Eat food, yeah? Ai, na, the plural, right? So caring, it really is loving and caring for that which feeds us. Yeah. And it's not the land because the plants grow on it, right? But that which feeds us spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, loving and caring for that which feeds us. So that means we look at the interconnectedness and the balance between all things. So when we say Aloha Aina, when we say Aloha Aina yourself, that's what we say in our groups. You Aloha Aina yourself, and that means what are you going to do to take care of yourself and take care of your connections to all things. So this idea of caring for that which feeds you means taking care of your kids. Not because they feed you, but they feed your soul. Yeah? The baby, the kiki back there, feeds our soul. I love to hear that baby crying because it's like, that's the future.
Yeah.
Right? That's the future, here with us today. Right? So this idea of Aloha Aina is a core value in our curriculum because, as Kahu says, everything we do is connected to something else. And that so like now I'm connected to this clicker thing here, right? This is it. This is part of me right now. And even when I leave this room, this thing, I'm going to remember that I had this thing inside this room because it will forever be with me from now on. The ground I walk on, every little cockroach, every little whatever. I mean, start watching. It's kind of serious, right? But the idea is that you always respect everything around you. So it's not only caring for the land. You care for the water. You care for plants. You care for human beings. You care for this table. I'm not going to push this table over because who cares? This is a thing. It's a very important thing. I have water in here. Before it's kind of like, oh, rocking out of water, throw out. Now, every time I have extra water, I put them in the grass. Yeah. Might have to take a few extra steps, but now I do that, right? Instead of throwing them down the drain. So everything is related to each other. So when you think about this idea of interconnectedness, it's this idea that when we care for things, those things will care for us, right? When we pick up opala on the beach will care for us by giving by making the land a good place that makes the waters a little cleaner, the corals will be better, the fish will be better, yeah? So every single little thing makes a difference. So now it's kind of like, man, I'm so scared to go inside the water because I might step on a coral, you know? What, 5 million years before, you never know if coral will step on, 5 million years before that thing will come back. It's like, did I ever think of that growing up in Hilo in the, you know, in the 50s? I don't think so. But now it's like, oh, I wish I had known that, yeah? So all these things now, you realize the kuleana we have, which is aloha aina. We're connected, all of us, to all things. Beings, places, things, elements. Yeah, we're connected to the stars, the moons, the heavens. We are part of this, and they are part of us. Yeah? And then lokahi, not equality, not same, but balance and unity, right? So one of the things that we all say, and this is again part of this positive for us social workers in the room, this strengths-based approach with not only the mele ho'opono but ke alokahi, is that, you know, when we give birth, and we all of us pop out of our mama's wombs, hopefully, that when that happens, yeah, we are pure. We are in a natural state, fully balanced. And that's this natural state of balance. And so what we're hoping for is every day, try to go get back to that, because, you know, as soon as we pop out, then it's kind of like, oh, cut the, you know, it's like, oh, not in balance anymore. Yeah? But inside here, we're in balance, yeah? When we come out in the world, immediately, gotta breathe on your own, cut the umbilical cord, I mean, everything not in balance anymore. So we're always trying to get back into balance, right? But it's possible. So every day you strive, sometimes a little bit like this, sometimes a little bit like this, but all in all, try to stay in balance, yeah? That's why I say, like, sometimes you can eat junk food, and then the next day try to eat better. You know, you didn't walk today, but instead of maybe taking the elevator, try to, you know, walk a few steps. You know, so then someday I take elevator, you know, so you always just try to always think like, okay, if I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do this other thing tomorrow. Always trying to be in balance, right? What does that also tell you? Don't be hard on yourself. That's another thing that happens with women who have been in violent relationships, right? You just get so many terrible messages that you think like, I'm so bad, I'm so stupid, I'm so ugly, I'm a bad mother, I don't cook right, I mean, I don't know how to find a good partner. But it means to have love for yourself and to have patience for yourself, because just trying to be in balance, yeah, is hard. Pono, of course, very, very important thing, yeah? This idea of being truthful and righteous and respectful. Kuleana, this is a very important part of our curriculum too, which is we believe that we've lost our identity. We've lost our way, right? And so a core part is how do we get our identity back, and how do we get back to this idea of our connections, yeah? And then on Na'au, we're going to work on Na'au and for the rest of the time. Aloha, of course. Ohana, ho'ihi, hano, dignity. So, you know, that's another thing that, you know, we say, I think sometimes when we feel bad about having been in a bad relationship or having somebody treat us so poorly, we say, I've lost respect for myself and I have no dignity. But, you know, you always have dignity. You do. You have dignity because of a being, because you're a being. We all have dignity, right? But when you remember aloha aina, it means you have dignity, but, you know, unfortunately, so does that cockroach. Right? Really. I'm sorry, but so does that cockroach. So we have to kind of figure out, like, all things and beings, all elements, every wind, there's dignity in that too, yeah? Aloha aina. What feeds you, you feed, yeah? Kupono, this idea of being upright and truthful, yeah? The ho'olona, this is a hard one, yeah? Listen, pay attention. It's like, are you listening? Are you listening? Yeah? Laulima, working together, so important. Ho'omanawanui, this is another one, hard job for us. So we don't have patience for ourselves. You know, should have, you know, we lost that weight yesterday. I should have, you know, lost 2 pounds yesterday. It's like, oh, so much not patience, you know. And humility, very important, you know. So these are all kind of things, and we talk about these. Actually, we have this thing, you know, Naloina o Kapo'e Hawaii. So one of the things we do, not in the women's group, but in the men's group, we start with what we call a Naloina round. So we pick a word, like we say, ho'olono, and we say to all the guys, tell us an example of ho'olono you did this week. And you know what? All of them can think of one thing. or ho'omanawanui. Just all the things they come up with is like, wow, that's not bad. Because what are we trying to do? We're not going to focus on the bad things. We know you can do good things, so let's hear about it. And then we want you to do that again, and do that again, and do that again, so they forget to do the bad things and to say bad things and treat your partners with disrespect. Yeah? Okay, so now we're going to do a lesson. This would be a practice lesson. What we do is we already have our little noea, which is Wahine Kuhinapapa, the night gives birth. And we always start with an essential question. So this is going to be the questions we have in our session for today, okay? And the lesson is on mana and na'au. And here are the things we're going to try to get to today in our time together. What are your sources of power? Each and every one of you. How do you regain, sustain, and maintain your mana? And we're going to talk about what mana is and what power is. And then we're going to, all of us, talk a little bit about this. How did our kane lose their connection to what is pono in their relationships? Related to mana, power, and trusting our na'au. Yeah? So these are going to be the questions we're going to ponder in our time for the next rest of the session. So here's some kind of little points about this. And again, don't worry so much about, I got to make sure I write all these things down for Kalei leaves, and I need that PowerPoint, but just try to be present. You're not going to get the PowerPoint, you know. So I know you're not paying attention. I know. You know, I'm a teacher at UH, but one of the things, they've done these studies about the use of PowerPoint. And I have this friend she's a teacher at a college on the mainland. She actually wrote a paper called The Dumbing Down of Students Because of PowerPoint. And really think about it. What happens with the PowerPoint is, I'm sure that, because I can see you folks, yeah? You're both paying attention to me and this up here, right? So you're a little distracted, really, because, let's see, shall I pay attention to the slide or pay attention to Kalei? Right? Now, the solution would be if I would read the slides, which, we've all seen people, right, read the slides, like, that is deadly, right? But what happens is that people do, like, kind of junk PowerPoints, and, like, they write every single sentence on there. PowerPoint is not supposed to be like, it's like, if you wanted to read, you could read. Yeah, it's supposed to be like little high points, yeah? But what happens is that people are so paying attention to this, they're not thinking. You're naturally not taking it in. And all of you are thinking like, oh, I gotta get that PowerPoint, right? But really, you should try to like be present with the learning instead of like, oh, I'm not gonna remember that. You will remember what you're supposed to remember. That's who we are. Remember, we didn't have PowerPoint, we didn't have Pala. We had only our minds and our hearts and our senses to remember our whole genealogy, hundreds of years. But now we can't even manage like one day without PowerPoint or our notes, right? So
I'm guilty of that. I missed your last point.
Well, see? That's my point.
Can you bring it back?
Right? So,
that's the point.
The previous one, Kalei, what was your last point?
Which one?
The last one. Yeah. How did our county?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So just try to kind of stay with this. Okay. So, mana. We're going to kind of go in a second. Mana is recognized by all Polynesian cultures as sacred, spiritual source of power or essence. Anybody else, like when you hear mana, some thoughts or feelings or, what is mana to you? Anything else?
Power.
Strength. Power. Spiritual. Creation. Right? But mana is it's a big word. But what's important about this word is that every culture has it, actually, this mana. Because it's not only just kaina, it's a very spiritual word. Because it's things that that's why I think I like essence myself. Yeah. It's something you cannot exactly explain. It's more than just power. It's more than only spiritual power. It has almost to do with, whatever, a force. It's like I said, this thing has mana. But so does this. So does this. So do each and every one of you. Everything has mana in it. So that's the other thing. A lot of times people think of mana as only being in the human body, but everything has, there's mana in the breeze, yeah? There's mana in the sun, mana every place, because mana is an essence, yeah? So it's intangible, but it also can be regained, sustained, and maintained. So the fact is, you can lose some of your essence. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, some days it's like we don't feel so much mana, right? So you can actually lose it. You can also gain it back. You know, when you have a kind of a good day, you feel better. Yeah, and we would say that's not because of your medications. It's because you know that you have gotten back in balance. Yeah, more lokahi. Yeah, your mana has been regained. The other thing is there are things we can do to sustain our mana, yeah, and there's also things you can sustain to go on, you know. So when we live a pono life, our mana gonna be better and stronger, and then the mana gonna go in your kids and all the generations to come, right? So it's intangible though, hard to explain what it is, but I know we know when we don't feel it so much, yeah, because it's about a core thing. Now there might be some of you in this room who will say like, I don't even know what she's talking about. I never even felt that once. But this is that whole thing. We've lost track of some things, yeah, that are so essential to who we are, yeah. Mana in Hawaiian culture, but this is also true of many, many cultures, in Polynesia in particular, is the power and authority of the gods and our chiefs and chiefesses. So when people say like, oh, you know, Hawaiian ali'i, you know, they had incest, you know. But we know why this is true. The idea was to keep the line pure. So like, why would you have sex outside of the line if you want to keep the line pure? You want to keep the mana, because what? Mana can be maintained, sustained, right? So if you're like, go have sex with any people, then you could have, you know, you might lose some mana, right? One of the things we say to abusers is we say, when you harm your partners, you have lost some of your mana. See, what they say is, I say, you know, also, you're trying to take her mana away from her. And see, that's somehow different to say that, right? Than to say, you're bad for hurting your partner. When we say, you lose your mana, you lose your status, you lose your essence when you hurt somebody else. But then we also say, you know what else you did? You took it away from her. You took it away from her. So it's bad enough that you lost, but then you took hers, right? So that idea of lokahi, now you've put her out of balance and you put your own self out of balance. Bad to do that, right? So what we say is that mana is held a lot, and we think about mana as a belonging to their gods and the chiefs and chiefesses. But the idea is that it always comes down and is through everything, right? So that's why when some of our chiefs and chiefesses did not live pono lives, we would say, they lost some of their stature, right? They lost some of their mana because they did not live pono lives, right? It's found to some degree in all life. So that's the idea that if you think about it as a spiritual or some kind of essence, then it's in everything. Everything has mana, yeah? And then we have the na'au. What is na'au? Yes, right? So now the word na'au really means the guts, your intestines, really, yeah? But it also is the seat of our emotions, right? So when we say na'au, it is also your instinct. Your instinct, yeah? So when we say, oh, trust your gut. Yeah. Right? We're not saying trust all your, all the doo-doos in your intestines, right? Right? We're saying trust that something deep thing inside of you, right? It's your connection to aloha aina, connection to all things, beings, and elements. The na'au is commonly best known as your instinct or that gut feeling, yeah? So one of the things about, here, so survivors of sexual and domestic violence often feel that they have no spirituality or that their spirituality was taken from them. This idea, I'm alone, I've lost something, God has forsaken me, yeah? They have been told verbally, physically, sexually, emotionally that they're nothing, you're never going to find anybody else, you're a bad mother, you're ugly. Just all these put downs, that actually starts to kind of be taken in. You start losing some of your mana because it's being taken away, right? You lose that light inside of yourself. And then after these negative messages, survivors start to kind of believe that. Yeah? They take it in, and then they start to lose value and belief and that spiritual center in themselves. So this is what we call internalization, right? So now I don't even have to tell you you're ugly. You already think you're ugly. Right? I don't have to tell you stupid because you already feel like you're stupid. You don't even have to think like I cannot leave because I already told you. You try leaving, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna kill the kids, and I'm gonna kill your mother and your father too. It's like, and then it's like, you know why I didn't leave? Because of that. And I start feeling like I'm so worthless. I'm so ugly. I'm such a terrible partner that there's no place else for me to be. You know, so much light has gone out inside of you, but not because you are a stupid, weak person. Your mana was taken from you by someone who had disregard for who you are, right? But the other thing is, that person who took it, they've lost their mana too. They don't get mana from taking yours. They lose theirs and they took yours too. They don't get yours inside of them, right? Because that's not theirs to take, right? But they don't have to tell you that anymore. You know already, right? And they know you know. That's why they don't even have to say anymore, because they know you know already, right? So, when foreigners came to Hawaii, they stated that the mind is superior to the na'au. And so what happened is that, you know, all of us, we started to lose that faith in that. I'm going to read you something that Kahu has told us, yeah? So due to colonization, we used to trust our na'au. We used to trust our gut, right? And I think this is one of those things, is that any of us who have been victimized, yeah, we lose this connection, our na'au as a guide. And we lose this source of strength and belief in ourselves. So one of the things that, and I want you all to kind of reflect on this, you don't share with everybody out loud, but you know, one of the things that a lot of us who have been harmed or hurt in situations, but primarily like in a relationship, is we say, you know what, I had kind of a gut feeling that there was something kind of weird about that person, but I just put it aside. Or you know, that first time they said, hey, how come you came home 10 minutes late? It's like, you know, I kind of didn't feel that good about it, but then I just thought, oh, he just cared about me, right? Or that fourth drink that I had at that bar with that really cute person, and then I thought, you know, I shouldn't have had that fourth drink. Yeah. And all of a sudden you wake up, and it's the next morning, you're not sure where you are, and then you've been sexually assaulted. It's like, but you know what? I should have followed my instinct, which was I shouldn't have had that fourth drink. I shouldn't have gone out to the car. I shouldn't have married the person. Right? I shouldn't have moved in. I shouldn't have signed the lease. But whatever it is, it's like, right? You know, I'll take that. It's been like, oh, I didn't feel like it was right, but I didn't follow it, right? And this is this thing about the na'au. Exactly. You know, that really, this is mana, you know. The na'au is made up of mana. And the mana is the thing that helps you know who you are and how you move about in the world, yeah? So, but what happens is that when you're beaten down, really, beaten down by words, by thoughts, by actions, you know, that light, that essence gets smaller, 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 and then dark inside here. Can I even feel the na'au? Can I even figure out, like, you know, what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad? It's just everything all confusing, you know? But the fact is that in many cultures, our instinct represents another aspect of human intelligence and spirit and awareness. Think about this now. What if the most smartest part of you was over here, not over here, over here? I mean, really, I'm not going to say not think about it, I say feel about this. That if all those times that we thought, you know what, I'm not sure I should do that. If we followed that, how much better our lives would probably be. Oh, amen. Right? Let's follow that. Now, for some of us, we would say that's God speaking to us. Yeah? But it's something that has to do with essence. It's something you cannot exactly explain. Whereas if I say to you, okay, now read PowerPoint number 8, you can say, oh, that's a good idea. No, that was smart, that thing she said. But really, if I said, listen to how it feels, this thing that I said in PowerPoint number 8, it would be kind of a different thing. Not what I'm telling you, but what you're feeling about it. So if you thought that you thought over here, what a different revolutionary way of living our lives.
Yes.
Think over here, not over here, right? This is where the intelligence is, not up here. Over here. But the West said, don't listen to your, what is that mana thing, right? Think, read the palapala, write everything down, memorize, right? Instead of like, just be in the world, no? Our na'au can help us to know what is right and wrong. And I really believe this. I mean, I want you folks to really reflect on this. The fact is that if we were to trust that thing and that instinct, one thing about na'au, the instinct, and this is one of the things I think is very hard, you have to kind of get yourself around this. Your na'au never leads you to negativity. Your na'au will never lead you into a bad pono'ole place. That's not what na'au is. Na'au is pure goodness. It really is. Your instinct will always lead you to the right thing. So when people say, "Oh, I followed my instinct and I took that one turn on the highway and had all traffic management," I was like, "Really? Is you sure now that was your instinct?" And then when you really kind of reflect on it, it kind of wasn't your instinct. It was kind of like, "Oh, I can see playing cars down there." Yeah. I don't think that's your instinct, right? So this is one that I think has to do with faith and a belief in what is true about who we are as a people, which is this is our best, smartest self is right over here, not over here. And only goodness comes from the na'au. Only goodness, not badness, not evil, not negativity, not hate. Only aloha comes from your na'au. Yeah. So being in harmony with your na'au means deeply living a Hawaiian cultural way, because this is totally the opposite of college. Yeah. In college and science, we tell you, don't trust that. And, you can't see God. It's like, only what's on facts and only what you can touch, only what's proven. But the fact is, Hawaiians lived very well and was one of the most productive, advanced people living in the middle of the Pacific, the most isolated place on the entire globe, and all the things we were able to accomplish. Yeah? No disease for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're doing something kind of right? So let me read you a couple things, and then I'm going to have you do a reflection for a minute or two. So here's what Kahu said about how his way of thinking is. In Hawaiian physiology, listen now, because that's why I didn't put them up there. Kahu says, in Hawaiian physiology, the most important part of the person is what is contained in the four corners of bodily existence. In the Hawaiian creation story, there is mention of the fact that the four corners of existence are everything that is above you, everything that is below you, everything that is in the horizons around you, and everything in your immediacy. The definition of existence and creation. Similarly, in human physiology for Hawaiians, the most important part of you is contained in your four corners, from shoulder to shoulder, po'ohiwi to po'ohiwi, and thigh to thigh, uha to uha. It is in here that you do your feelings, your creations, your thinking. So what Kahu always said is, he said, my smartest, best thinking is over here, right inside here. And he said, as soon as I start thinking above my po'ohiwi, I'm in trouble. Interesting, huh? So as soon as I start thinking up here, he said, almost always I start going astray. My best thinking, he said, is between my hips and my shoulders, all inside here. He said, and Hawaiians did most of their thinking inside here. And then when foreigners came, they said, what are you talking about? This is the seat of intelligence, emotion, value up here, right? So what Kahu says is, if we were to really trust who we are as a people, we would go back to thinking over here. And he said, if we do, we're never going to be led wrong, because our na'au only comes from a place of pure goodness. Yeah. So that's Kahu. And then the second reading I want to give is just around the Olelo Noel, Wahine Kuhinapapa, the night gives birth. And this is a gift to all of us. Thus begins the ancient Hawaiian world wherein Po, the unfathomable and mysterious female night, gives birth by herself and without any male impregnating element to a son and daughter, Kumulipo and Po'ele, who by their incestuous mating create the world. The Hawaiian conception of the universe is recounted in a cosmologic genealogy that spans 16 wa, or time periods, 8 in the night and 8 in the day, wherein the 40,000 akua, or gods, are born. 40,000 akua is a figurative phrase referring to the divinity in every aspect of life. But when we begin to name all of the female akua, it seems that at least half, or 20,000, are indeed female. It is the female akua that empower Hawaiian women. They are our ancestors. They are our inspiration. They live in us. They are all we know of what it means to be female. They define our femininity, our sexuality, and our great capabilities. Wahana, the night gives birth. It is woman who creates the universe.
All right.
So I'm going to ask you to ho'omalo now. You can, if you have a little piece of paper, or you can not write if you don't want, to just reflect on these for just a very short time, like 4 or 5 minutes. You can make little notes. So the first one is, what interrupts your connection to yourself and your na'au? The second one is, how does domestic abuse interrupt a woman's connection to herself and her na'au? And then the third one is, what has happened with our Hawaiian men, that they have lost their connection to their na'au, and what is pono in their relationships? So just write about this for just a few minutes. I'm going to ask us, whoever feels willing to share after that, to share together. So about 2 or 3 minutes.
Excuse me. Thank you.
just like another minute or so. Just, you know, you don't have to be finished. Just kind of get an idea of, you know, what you might reflect upon, and then we'll share. Okay, so let's just share. I mean, we don't have to share in any order. Anybody just want to share some of their thoughts? It could be about this or anything we've covered so far. We'll be wrapping up, you know, as soon as we finish this part here. So, any thoughts or reflections about these issues?
I'm just speaking for myself and my experience. What is my connection? I know is when I lose focus and I'm not spiritually connected. For me to keep well.
Yes.
I notice that when I'm strong, when I don't stay connected, then I start to, wander off and slowly make bad choices. Slowly let things into my life that normally I wouldn't. And the na'au is kind of the gauge.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, gauge. Yeah, that's great.
I don't know, I connect that with Kepua. That's
sure.
the gift,
Yeah.
And that's the gauge where when things do come to me, the gauge is like, okay, this is good, okay, let this in. And so I'm not connected, and things, come to me, and I don't have that gauge. It's like kind of offset. It's kind of off balance, and it's not there. And so I cannot make a good decision because I'm not feeling anything. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, I guess so, because that's what I normally do. I'm like, okay, yeah, let it in. And then things start to happen, and then I realize, slowly, I start to let more things into my life, and then it's like, oh, where am I? So off track. So I gotta refocus, reconnect, turn back.
So the idea about your na'au is your gauge. I like that. You know?
For me,
Interesting.
yeah. And Kule is such an important part.
It is.
Because that is
Essential.
Essential me is it's asking for help from whatever you call your higher power. That's just my
I think in our discussions, somebody said that when her husband was not with her, and they together they kind of were balanced, and when things were right, he had a moral compass. So when he was off, and he lost his he lost his moral compass, or he lost his connection. So he was making all kinds of decisions that were just so not right. So he had no moral compass, no connection, and he was just like spinning, when his decisions, and was making nothing. So I often thought of that, I don't want to come to that point where I would lose my compass, and I think my connecting is my compass and helps me guide me to make, just like a compass would guide you.
Yes. Oh, I love that metaphors. Yeah.
For me, it's like just daily life, like all the stress of daily life, and then you got your head down and you're like trying to do X, Y, and Z, and you're worrying about how am I going to pay this bill, what do I have to do with this kid, and then you forget to like look inside and see like what are you supposed to do, and like what's truly important, because you're so busy like trying to do the grind, that you forget to connect.
Yeah. I mean, life, modern life is really antithetical to na'au monitoring. Really, so hard to stay connected. That's so true.
Because I think sometimes we come home, we're so tired, just lay down and maybe start watching TV and then you zone out, and you don't. And when maybe you could take some time to turn everything off and sit down and think, oh, maybe write
Yeah.
or ponder or.
Yeah. Pray. Yeah. Right.
I think to answer all three questions,
Yeah.
if you just think about, do you love yourself? Do you think you have self-worth? And for number one, what interrupts your connection is you don't think you have self-worth. You don't love yourself. Number two, when you get abused, you're validating that thing.
Yeah.
And then number three, he's doing it because he don't love himself. You know, so I think that answers all three questions.
A lot of our Hawaiian men don't know the Hawaiian way.
Yeah.
They're so westernized that
Yeah.
they don't realize. I have two sons who are learning that, and they're like, Mom, all this time I thought I was being the man. I go work and she do everything, and he said, that's not even the way. And they're like, thought they was being Hawaiian. They never even know they wasn't even being Hawaiian. So now they're taking the time to learn, because it was taught to us the Western way, and then we taught them the same way. Now
Yeah.
we're learning, you know.
Yeah. Right.
And we gotta teach our kids and our grandkids, you know. But it's the Western thing that it's us losing all what we supposed to know.
And I think the Western culture is such a culture of immediacy. Everything needs to happen now. So you know what? When you're thinking with this, things happen fast.
Yes.
Things going here, going to take a little bit more time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
You know, it's slower, but it's slower because we're out of practice. Actually, that's what I would say.
Right.
It actually is.
Right.
I mean, really, it's really fast. You get into an elevator, you know, like with somebody who looks kind of like a little seedy, like. You don't have to think that hard. You feel it immediately.
Yeah.
You feel it. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's all like right away. Ooh, uchi.
Right.
And it's like, but we just don't pay attention. Our always trying to tell us something kind of fast, but we're like thinking we pay attention up here
Right.
because we think this is gonna get us our
Right.
answer more fast,
Right.
but it kind of doesn't. Right.
For me, I think it's pride for all three. Like pride gets in my way of everything too, and I just gotta put the pride on the side, and I can walk within the out because my gut feeling tells me when it's right, always.
Now, why do you think that pride? What is that pride thing about?
I don't even know.
I mean, I don't
Something
try to
that takes
clarify
over
for you.
everything of me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
so prideful sometimes that it's not that I think I'm better than. It's just that it gets in maybe self-worth.
Yeah.
It's probably self-worth, like
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a
but I want to
false
put
pride,
something
yeah.
above it to make me feel better. So, but I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
That's where my pride gets in the way. Like, I know I'm not good at certain stuff, or I'm feeling less than.
Yeah.
Then my pride will kick in to make me think that I'm all that, and I'm not even happening.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
We all been
I'm
there.
sorry.
We all been there. None of us know about the pride thing.
Or the measures,
To admit it.
the measures that other people measure us by.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, our material wealth,
Yes.
Yes.
the type of job that we have, or
Or don't have.
or do you do the things like, you know, your kids? Did they go to school? Did they get a job? But the other thing is, are they a good person? You know, are they a good person? If they're a good person and they're struggling to find themselves, what is more important? Is it more important that they just go to school and get a job, or is it important that they find themselves and then follow their path?
I liken that to as sense of place.
Yeah, that's important, yeah.
You have that sense of place, and that comes in with the connectedness.
Yeah.
You know, comes in with the connectedness of your self-worth, of knowing who you are and what you got, and being okay that I'm not the greatest cook, but I can sew.
Yeah.
All right.
I may not be a gardener, but you know, I can plan. Yeah, I have administrative skills, you know, and just being comfortable within yourself and knowing your sense of place, where you're connected to, and what would fill up your tank again.
Yeah. Great. Anybody over here? Yeah.
I think it's for me, it's a clash in values, and sometimes it's on a conscious level or an unconscious level.
Yes.
Because like to me, now is a spiritual awareness that we have in us, and a lot of times if we don't follow that, or we aren't really secure in what we believe in, you know, a lot of this interrupts, you know, who we are, and we allow a lot of this negativity to come in. It's not easy, but it takes a lifetime to build that strength.
Anybody else? So let me say just a couple of things. So I think, well, first of all, mahalo everybody for sharing about that, because I do think that probably all of these questions can be answered by, you know, as many of you said, by the same. It's the same problem, really, right? And I think for us who are trying to kind of use culture as a medium and as a pathway to healing, particularly for survivors of violence, what we believe is that as you get connected and as you get reacquainted, or to get acquainted for the first time, right? Because for many of us, like, we don't know some of these things, you know. Or maybe we know it deep inside us, but it hasn't been nurtured, right? So this idea of nurturing your na'au, I mean, if you go back to your most natural state, I mean, why is it that kids, you know, I mean, little children, they can see any kind of stuff, right? They can see ho'ailona, they can see their grandma or auntie that's just passed. How come we cannot see too much rubbish inside us?
Yes.
You know? Right? They're very pure. And you know what? We are that way too. We just got too much stuff on top, right? It is a bowl of light idea, yeah? So the na'au is light, but we fill it up with any kind of things, drugs, overeating, you know, too much work, too much TV, too much problems. And so what we believe is that we're trying to go back to a more natural state, right? And a natural state only means just pay attention. It's there for us to know. We just have to pay attention, right? Ho'ailona, there's symbols and signs all around us. But we're so busy like, that traffic, go, I want to get that late. I mean, we're like so paying attention to the wrong things that we're missing all these beautiful signs around us that are helping us to try to find our way. So I think the na'au, and this lesson about na'au is that mana and na'au are so intertwined for us as women, because we are told in the Western world that we don't have value. That equality will is we got to be as good as the men. No. We have to be as good as we are.
Amen.
Yeah? What I was to the guys is that you wish you were more like the women.
Amen.
That's your problem. You cannot give birth to babies. You know something? You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for us. Right? So the guys are like, when they go, I said, you know all that, you would be nothing. You wouldn't even be here if it weren't for us. So you better start respecting women.
Exactly.
Because we make the world go on. We make you possible. So if you respect, you respect women, you will respect yourself. You respect yourself, you're going to respect women. Those two things go hand in hand, because the women are the creators of all things in the universe. Yeah. So just wanted to leave with a few images and voices. This is our closing ceremony at Kuhinapapa for one of our groups. And you see the women make their pihe. So here's a comment from one of our participants. Collectively, we knew that we are not alone in our suffering, but we were one in mind, in body, in spirit, and in ancestral blood. Here's one from the guys. Now this is down at, this is on Hawaii Island. This is at Waipi'o Valley. I've been with Sparkle for 17 years. I've been coming to this program many times. I've never graduated. This guy had been in the batterers group, I think, over 10 times for beating his wife of 17 years. This is the farthest I ever went, and he finished and actually volunteered to come back. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Volunteered to come back to get them in. And another guy, it brought me back to my roots, a place to reflect and grow. And then another woman, again at Kuhinapapa, it was empowering to see the relevance of each olo and noeau that coincide with the topic at hand, and I continue to read from the lesson sheets when I feel unbalanced. So here's universal approaches, the power of culture, process of healing and change is something bigger than yourself. Redemption and forgiveness, accountability and reflection as healing. So this idea of redemption, right? It's all possible for us to make things better and to live a pono life. No matter how bad a life you've had and how many people you've harmed, it's always possible to make things better. being a whole healthy person in your community. Don't have to only use Western ways. We can value our own ways. The interconnectedness across all levels, space, time, and dimensions. Intersectionality, this idea of multiple and interlocking forms of oppression. So colonization and poverty, sexism, that women are not as good as men, so many things. And trauma as a very core aspect of violence, but also of colonization, of oppression and inequality. And then this is how we close every group. This is what we use with the men. So at the end of every group of the men's group, all the men stand, they say their name, and they say Namele Mau Amau. This is from Kahu, which is my work and my stories go on forever. And this idea is whatever you do is now carried. Your ancestors watch the work that you do. Everyone around you watches the work that you do. And all your ancestors, all of your descendants to come are watching the work that you do. So no matter what you do today, it all reflects forward, reflects backward. Yeah. So then they say Namele Mau Amau. And then for women, we close our groups with He Wahine Maua Alina No'au. I'm a woman of superior strength.
All right.
So if I'd like to ask everybody to stand now and let's hold hands, and then we'll all say this all together. So we close with, so we first say Namele Mau Amau. And if you don't have to say in Hawaiian if you don't want, you can also say it in English, right? So, and remember now when you say this is basically now we come to a close, and we say that our time today here is now a new story. We've created a new story of all this together, and our stories go on forever, and then also each and every one of us, all of our women who have come before us, all of our women in our lives today, and all the women who will come after us are women of superior strength. So, first one. Namele Mau Amau. He Wahine Maua Alina No'au. Mahalo.